Hello, this is FPL Affairs, episode 6, part 2. In this part, we compare the premium midfielders directly before looking at 3 quick drafts that have either 2, 3, or 4 premiums in, before finishing with our initial thoughts for our game week 10 teams. Let's carry on cracking. What needs taken into account is obviously Foden's and Son's minutes are less. So those need taken into account when looking at the data. Who have you got at the moment? Remind us.
It's the minutes guys, Son and Foden.
I've got Saka.
I've had Saka and Salah at parts of the season. I'm currently on Son and Foden. I like looking at these, and I like looking at expected goals, because look at Son's.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like when he does play for Spurs, he's involved. Do you know what I mean? He is probably the main man there. I mean, Dominic Solanke's stats are those of a CDM at the moment, so I'm not sure much is going through him. But when Son plays, he's got one more key pass than Cole Palmer. Do you know what I mean? Look at that. 15 key passes versus Palmer's 14, Salah's 12. Obviously, we all know Saka's the king of that. But, yeah, expected assists, he's above Palmer. So, that's the thing with Son. Everything goes through him in that Tottenham team. It's interesting to see Foden's expected assists at 1.8. That would be heavily skewed after the Southampton game. I did think he could have walked away with a double-digit haul in that game on another day. He was massively involved. And so those are the two that I've got. I think it's a shame, Foden, because he had the potential over the last 2 or 3 weeks to really go. He played 90 against Southampton, and I thought, here we go. This is the week he repays my faith, because I think I've had him since game week 7, so I've had him for 3 weeks now. But it hasn't happened. Same with Haaland. So Man City are in a bit of a slump. Son came back from injury, didn't he? And I think he got like a couple of goals. I had him for that, so I was quite pleased with that, because I did Saka to Son the week that Saka was injured. Probably would have been a good idea to reverse that transfer this week. But Saka for me is such a good player. It's just such a good player. I mean, he turned Robertson inside out at the weekend. The bloke didn't know whether he was coming or going. He had no idea, and this is Robertson. Andy Robertson's a great fullback. He's been probably been in the top 2 or 3 left backs in the Premier League for quite some time. But he made him look like a schoolboy. And I do think his data is skewed mainly to assists, obviously being on set pieces. So two of those assists, I think, were 2 weeks in a row where there were corners to Gabriel. Arsenal are obviously very good from set pieces, so to have Saka on set pieces is a bonus. The other thing I would say on this list is you've got 3 penalty takers on the right. Obviously, Son, is he on penalties? I'm not sure he is. I thought Maddison was on it. But then I think this season he is on penalties. But I don't think he was last year, unless they ended up giving it to him late on. I can't really remember, but I remember Maddison being like a front. I think actually, wasn't it like for weeks and weeks they never got one and nobody had any idea who it was?
Yeah.
And then I think they finally got one and neither of them were on the pitch, and Richarlison took it or something.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly last year, but it is Son, isn't it, this season? Because I think he's had one.
Yeah.
But then Richarlison took the one at the weekend, didn't he? Because he was arguing with Maddison over who was going to take it. So take from that what you will.
I saw a different angle of that on social media, and it looked as if it was one of those things where because in recent years teams try the dark arts and try to spook out the penalty taker when he's
Yeah.
getting ready, to the extent where it's now like a player gets the ball, looks as if they're going to be the one to take it, and then once the refs sorted all the defenders out and everyone's ready, the real penalty taker comes and takes over. Remember, Newcastle did it a couple of years ago. Trippier picked the ball up, and Callum Wilson wasn't on the pitch, and Isak hadn't taken a penalty for us.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone was thinking, okay, Captain Trippier's taken it. And I think it might have been away at Nottingham Forest, actually, and late on in the game, perhaps even stoppage time. And Trippier's got the ball standing on the spot, really sort of psyched up. And Isak's wandered off somewhere, and the referee sorts the defenders out, and then Isak walked over, and Trippier just handed it straight to him.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, actually. I remember that. He sort of stood with the ball under his arm for ages, didn't he? I think, looking like you said, he was about to take it, and then Isak just came and took it straight off him.
And then,
there might have been an element of that at Spurs.
I think from the getting back to that, I think the video angle I saw, it certainly looked. It was a short clip, so I didn't really see what happened much before that. But Maddison held the ball, he was holding the ball, may well have put it down. He was looking around, waiting as if is everyone else sorted, and then he just walked over to where Richarlison was loitering amongst the defenders and gave him the ball. So I don't know what had happened before that, whether there'd been an argument or whatever, or whether they were doing the dark arts just to get it. But either way, we've gone off the point really about penalty.
Yeah, well, I think if I think Son's penalty taker, Saka's obviously penalty taker unless it's someone's birthday. He hands about. Palmer's obviously penalty taker. Salah's penalty taker. So Foden's, you've obviously got to bear that in mind when you look at the stats. I'm looking at bringing in the other three. I've got two, and I'm looking at swapping them for the other three. Now the problem you've got with Saka is their fixtures aren't very good short term, but it is because of Saka and it is Arsenal. So I'm thinking about that. Cole Palmer has got Man United. It's a shame Eric Ten Hag isn't there anymore. Otherwise, I'd have really thought about it. It's a shame he's gone from the Premier League full stop. I was enjoying watching that happen to Man United. Although we managed to give him some points, so you're welcome, Eric. But Salah's got a couple of nice fixtures. I think he's got some. They got like Brighton, Villa, and Southampton next three or something.
Brighton and Villa both at home, and Southampton away.
Yeah, so I like those. But then I think he goes into Arsenal, Tottenham after that or something, if I'm not mistaken, or Arsenal, Newcastle. It's definitely Arsenal.
They've just had Arsenal, though.
Oh, they've just had Arsenal. Who have they got?
Chelsea.
Is it City? No, it's City, not Arsenal. It's City, right? So they've got City in a few weeks' time. Cole Palmer's got United, and then they've got...
they've got Arsenal at home.
They've got Arsenal. Right, so they've got Arsenal. So it's them that's got Arsenal. So I've looked at bringing in Cole Palmer this week, but then you're bringing in Cole Palmer with United and Arsenal. So then I go, right, so I'll bring in Salah. But then if I bring in Salah, do you see what I mean? It's trying to figure out which way round to do it. I think I'll bring Salah in first, wait to game week 12, then go Palmer, and then Saka last. But you've got to rack up some real bank some real transfers for us doing this, because I don't particularly want to take any hits for any of them. Because I don't feel like... I just don't feel like they're not worth hits. But no one's worth a hit, really. Do you know what I mean? I don't think any player's worth a hit. I wouldn't take hits. Because if you're going to bring in Cole Palmer and you've got to sell, let's just use Phil Foden. Let's use Phil Foden as an example this week, or Son as an example this week. Son's, Ange Postecoglou has come out and say Son's going to start, right? So I've got 2 free transfers. So I can do Havertz to Cunha, which again we'll talk about later on. and I've got enough money to do Son to Palmer or Son to Salah, right? I can do either. But if I didn't have those 2 free transfers, taking out Son and taking out Havertz for a hit, it's just not worth a -4. You've got 2 perfectly good players there that are going to play. So there's no real point. So I wouldn't do any of them for a hit, and that'll be the same in weeks coming by, unless obviously someone like Gabriel's injured, then I might think about it. But I think it depends what order you do. I think if you're going to get anybody this week, get Salah, then roll another one, then go for Palmer in 12, then roll another one, and then go for Saka in 14. That's kind of where I'm at. But you do miss the Arsenal Forest game, I think, if I remember rightly. But obviously, you just got to hope. We had this conversation. If you own 2 of them, the other 3 will bang. You can't own all 5. It's who's got the highest ownership. At the moment, like I said, on Saturday, I was 21k. Palmer scored, Salah scored, 81k. Right? And that's up at the top where points, especially from 21k. Like my safety score, I think I was 18 points ahead of my safety score after Saturday. Yeah. Massive green, really pleased. Ended up like 6 points away from safety, or 5 after the Sunday's game. So they're obviously really highly owned and they're killing me. But if they were to blank and Foden and Son were to score this weekend, for example, I'd get that meteoric rise. It's like it's not Pokemon. You know what I mean? You're not going to ever catch them all. Like, it's genuinely really difficult to get all of them in, and Haaland and Trent and Vardy. Do you know what I mean? And all of these other premiums. So you just got to... You shouldn't make them out of fear. You shouldn't look at it and go, well, Palmer's the highest owned, so therefore I'm going to go for Palmer. Because, like I just said, they do have Arsenal, don't they, in a couple of weeks. So if I'm not looking at bringing in Cole Palmer right now, I would be looking at Salah as the most important one to get in, because he is... I mean, he's got the highest expected points on this list at 36.18, and he's got 43. So obviously Cole Palmer's massively outscored his points, but we had a conversation about him a couple of weeks ago where he's had 2 massive hauls. I think he's had a 27-pointer and a 17-pointer. The rest of the games have obviously been good with like 6s and 8s and 10s and a couple of blanks. But he has had 2 massive hauls, so in 2 game weeks. So he's not as... I wouldn't say his points are as consistent as Salah's. Or do you know what I mean? Salah just ticks over with an 8, an 8, an 8, an 8, a 10, an 8, a 6. Do you know what I mean? Something like that. Like, he does just tick over quite nicely with points. And then fixture-wise, who knows what United team they're going to play this weekend. I don't think I don't think United know. I don't think anybody knows. Nobody knows who's going to be in the dugout. Obviously, Amarim, but you don't know if he's going to be there in time. But they will give up. Yeah, it's Van Nistelrooy currently. Yeah, but you know what I mean. They'll get the successor in time for the weekend. But they will give up chances, and Cole Palmer will be involved. And if it is Casemiro in midfield, Cole Palmer will pop him in his pocket, and he will just sort of sit in there for the game, probably, unless he has a revival underneath Rude or Amarim. So, yeah, for me right now, rating these players based on what they've done this season, I'd go Salah, Palmer, Saka, Son, Foden, so right to left. Looking forward, I would probably go Salah, Palmer, Saka, Son, Foden. Yeah, same again. Yeah, I probably think that would continue. What do you think?
Uh, well, after at the beginning of the season, I did initially have Foden uh, in my team, but didn't go with him in the end simply because of how England did in the Euros and
Yeah,
them being late back to pre-season or even from when they arrived. Um, so yeah, he's one, and Foden did. I caught Foden a few times last season where he did
yeah,
well.
I did. I had him for a lot.
When Saka did really well, I didn't own him. So
Yeah, I was the
that
same.
sort of when that game week 20 to 26 last season, Arsenal really killed me
And me. Yeah, and me.
that period.
I went from
Um,
370th in the world to 75k during that period last year because of that. And Ollie
and
Watkins.
so after where I'm at the moment, and well, as you said briefly, just touching on the stats before you said it, is Saka's very much head and shoulders above the rest regarding assists
Yeah,
because of expected assists 2.49. Foden's is skewed, and the rest, well, Salah's less than one. And also bear in mind there was that Leicester game where Saka created chances. He got 2 bonus points or 3 bonus
yeah.
points, and he wasn't involved in any of the 4 goals.
No.
But but there are a number of times when his 4 assists would be a lot higher if it wasn't for some of his teammates, Kai Havertz, for example,
Yeah, Kai
fluffing
Havertz, for
chances.
example. Yeah. How would you rate
So
them?
yeah, and Saka's always heavily involved with his. Palmer, the percentage of involvement he is with the percentage of Chelsea goals where he's
Yeah.
either assisted or created.
Chances are he's
Um,
involved, isn't he, when
and
they score?
yeah, unlike Son at Spurs, and I think at this moment in time, because of minutes risk of Foden and Son uncertainty with injury, it is just pointing at the other three, really. I've got, because of last week's transfer debacle,
Hmm.
phone signal wise, I've still got Saka, and we'll come on to our teams in a moment. But before we do, I had a little play with. You could see it as a wild card now, or taking everything we've done into account. I've come up with 3 teams, which Jack hasn't seen yet,
No.
where it's about 100 million budget. Which, if people have done all right so far, your team value will be higher, so you'd be able to upgrade a few of the smaller ones of these.
Mm-hmm.
The first team, which is a Haaland and Salah. Sorry, I'll put this one first. So this one's got 2 of the premium midfielders in Salah and Palmer. Pros, it's got those 2. It's also got Mbeumo, one of the most in demand and popular midfielder at the moment of mid price, and it's also got Haaland in it. The cons, there are no premium defenders, and there's 2 budget midfielders in Rodgers at 5.4 and Wen and Notte at 5.1. And also bear in mind, all of these prices are based on current prices. So if you've got some of those players already and have held them whilst prices have risen,
Yeah, like
then
Rodgers, for example.
yeah,
Obviously had
he's
a
gone up
massive
a
price
lot.
hike.
Haaland's gone
Mm.
up a lot. So yeah, this was a very quick job, and I did actually notice afterwards, only actually earlier when I was re-looking at this, that I didn't realise at the time, but I've actually got down a Nottingham Forest double up defence. Had I have checked that or spent more time on this team, then I would have taken either Sells or Aina out. But yeah, that have kept the defence. Konate being the sort of budget way into the Liverpool defence. I mean, again, cons. There's no Man City or no Arsenal representation in that defence or keeper spots
Mm,
at all.
mm. But I think if you took team value into account, I think mine's up at like 102.7.
Yeah,
So do
which
you know what I
means
mean? If you had a good team value, you'd have money to spend there on like a King to a
Ricardo
Gabriel, or a King to a Rico Lewis, or a King to a Vardy. Do you know what I mean? Because there's already 0.2 in the bank there. So yeah,
or or also looking at Rodgers or Buonanotte up to Emil Smith Rowe, for example, and it's got down Strand Larson in there. That could easily be Vardy or
Acuna. He's a
Cunha.
little bit more expensive, isn't he?
Yeah,
I like that team. It's a nice team. I like that team. Again,
yeah,
you look at that defence and not having a premium defender, I'm not sure it would bother me. Obviously, Vardy's been a joke over the last 2 or 3 weeks,
yeah.
but I just feel like premium defenders are, they don't have the appeal they did last year. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody was
Not at the
clamouring
moment,
for
no. It may
Saliba and
change.
Gabriel, and obviously Trent had a poor season last season, but has had a very good one this season.
But he
I
hasn't got
mean,
he
I
hasn't
mean
he hasn't
FPL
got the
wise,
returns.
but it hasn't got the attacking returns. But all of a sudden, Liverpool look like the Arsenal of this season. Do you know what I mean? They look very solid defensively,
Yeah,
with the most clean sheets. So yeah, I like that draft. I think money could be better spent, but I like that draft. What have you got for me next?
yeah. So that I got lost with the slides on. So yeah, that Salah, Palmer, and Haaland draft has got Sales and Fabianski as two keepers. So saving best part of 1 million on Raya to get
Hmm.
Sales in. Downgrading, say Robertson to Konate or Trent to Konate. Then Aina, Aitnori, Keane, and Harwood Bellis complete the back five. Midfield, Rodgers, Palmer, Salah, and Burmo, Buonanotte. And up front, Haaland, Jimenez, and Strand Larson of Wolves. Second one has got 3 premium mids in it. Pros, still Saka and Palmer, and it's squeezed in Foden. Still got Haaland, and still got a premium defender. The main con is there is no Mo Salah in it. So this one, same goalkeepers. Defence was just Konate upgrading that to Gvardiol. This picture doesn't. Yeah, the midfield is Palmer still in there with Saka, Foden, Smith Rowe, who I just mentioned, Buonanotte. Same front three as on the last slide. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, it's kind of what I do if I had wildcard at the moment. So I would probably, and again, if people do have team value, Foden could easily be Son in that photo. Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
That's in that team, or again, Acuna or a Buonanotte could go up to Mbuemo if you've got really good team value, or if you had him from the beginning at a cheaper price. So if I wildcarded now, I would probably, with my team value, have had Robinson instead of Vardio, and then I could probably afford Foden to Salah. However, you are really light at the back, and your
yeah,
other two options are budget options. Smith Rowe is obviously very good, and you'd probably play a 3-4-3 again. I think a lot of this depends on what sort of formation you want to play. But
mm,
you'd look at it and you'd go, okay, that's good. But then if you're going to play a 3-4-3, then you're going to play Smith Rowe every week, or you could play Buonanotte, but you know what I mean. And then you'd want to play those three forwards, and then you'd have to choose between Robertson, Aina, Aït-Nouri, Keane, and Harwood Bennett every week, and I just wouldn't be that confident that
Yeah.
there were going to be any clean sheets there.
And again, as I said, this was a quick sort of
No, I'm
very
not
much.
questioning your team. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
right now, although the budget options enable you to have premium midfielders, they don't fill you with that much hope. Do you know what I mean? Like if you look at Keane, Aït-Nouri, Aina, and let's just use Robinson going back to a previous slide, they're obviously great players with attacking threat, but there's just something that doesn't look as nice with that. Like, so now you've got Vardiol in there. That's the main difference between the last photo and this photo. This team for me is that there's just that one premium defender in there.
Yeah.
And for some unknown reason, that changes my whole perspective on the team. Like, if I said to you, you could have Salah but not Vardiol, you'd go, well, obviously. But
Yeah.
it just changes my perspective on the team. I think it's interesting because budget options aren't glamorous, are they? They're not sought after. Obviously, Aït-Nouri is absolutely killing it at the moment, but yeah, it's just something that doesn't sit well with me in that last defence because they were all budget options, and now just putting Vardiol in there just makes that seem so much better, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I like again spending more time looking at this one. I'd review the Jimenez and Smith Rowe. I'd probably have one or the other. So
Maybe go to a Rodgers instead of Smith Rowe.
If I went with Smith Rowe, then Jimenez would become one of the other options we looked at earlier. We spoke about earlier, or Smith Rowe would be an alternative. Anyway, we'll move on to the last one, which I managed to squeeze 4 of them in.
Here we go. This is what I wanted to see. Here comes some budget defenders.
Salah, Palmer, Saka, and Foden. There's a premium defender. Con, no Haaland.
See, I want all 4 of them. That looks nice, doesn't it? That looks nice. This is what I mean. Everybody, if you've got the minerals to take Haaland out, God, you can spend some money. You can have such a nice balanced squad. For me, though, the defence is still light.
Yeah, defense is still a little bit light. But what I did after looking at this as well and coming up with this team, I also thought, well, at the moment, Foden's not sitting quite right, and I thought, well, I did look at this and you could add budget rise, and also bear in mind this budget's 100 million, so you'll have any team value on top of that. But it could, if Foden's not playing right at the moment, it'd think, well, a downgrade, you can't really call it a downgrade based on price, Foden to Mbeumo.
Yeah.
And
be the first thing you do.
And put a few more pennies either to upgrade Rodgers slightly to the next bracket. Could afford Eze, but Eze's not killing it at the moment, points wise.
No, you'd go in defence, wouldn't you? Spend a bit of money there.
You'd that money you'd save knocking Foden down would either go to maybe a Vardy to Chris Wood or Cunha based on current fixtures.
Yeah, like an Isak as well. Yeah, like an Isak or an Ollie Watkins. Do you know what I mean? Like that bit higher caliber striker. Obviously, Nick Jackson from game week 12. I mean, I'm looking at Nick Jackson, so I think he's got his scoring boots on this season in comparison with last season. Obviously, we had a chat earlier on this week on Tuesday because I could do Havertz down to a 4.5 and bring Palmer and Salah in this week for Son and Foden and swap them both round. It would have been for a hit. But there's part of me that wants to try and get all of them. There's part of me that just wants to try and get all of them. But I just don't think you can. I just don't think you can with Haaland's price being so high. I mean,
No.
Foden could go down to Smith Rowe there. You know what I mean? I think you sacrifice Foden if you were going to sacrifice anybody. I'm not sure he's going
Yeah.
to carry on starting week in, week out.
Mm.
But I mean, if Foden went down to a Smith Rowe and you've got good team value, Nick Jackson, if Foden's Smith Rowe and Nick Jackson's Haaland in that,
Yeah.
that's a nice team. That's a nice team.
Then you've also got that scope of tweaking around the 4.5 million options. So
Yeah, because there's a lot of them there. Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot of fixture swings coming up with Brighton defenders going to be sought after, and then
mm,
that makes Welbeck an option. Obviously, Welbeck was on the list of cheap forwards that I sent you when you asked me last night,
mm,
because he's been phenomenal for Brighton. He's obviously first choice. He's going to start week in, week out. I know he's just come back from an injury, which is why a lot of people sort of sold him last week, and then he started and scored. But
yeah,
if you have Welbeck in there, yeah, I'm quite happy just playing around with 4.5. There's so many of them. Like
yeah,
Luca Dean from Villa is playing. Villa's playing week in, week out in the
yeah,
Premier League, and they're playing that Matson in the Champions League, or he's still being benched, and they're playing
mm,
Dean in the Champions League. So you can get into some very good defences very cheap. I like you say Rico Lewis at City. Yuri and Timber at 5.5. If you want to go up a little price bracket,
mm,
there are cheap ways into good defences, and it does allow you to have more money to spend in midfield. I think at the start, on a contrary to last season for me there were some really good forward options like Ollie Watkins, like Isak, obviously Haaland, and that's where the money was spent. Because you could have a Cole Palmer at 5 million.
yeah,
You know what I mean? But now this season, I think it's premium mids. It's all about the midfield because there are so many cheap forward options,
mm.
like we just discussed, Jimenez, Vardy, Visser, what's his name?
And you could get
Uh,
more premium. You could get more
Cunha.
premium forwards last season because of
Yes.
how, because of the price Palmer
Mm,
was and the
mm,
price Anthony Gordon was.
mm. So you could get in there. The budget options this season in midfield, although are good with like Smith Rowe and Rogers and McNeil, they're not like they were last year.
No.
And so you can't. Ollie Watkins and Isak are going to be so lowly owned. They are. They just are because there's so much better value in a
Mm.
Jimenez and in a Chris Wood than there is in an Ollie Watkins and an Isak. So I think it might be a sort of like a good way to look to go for them over the next couple of weeks because they will be lowly owned because a lot of people will be going for Cunha or for,
Mm.
like you say, a Jimenez. So, I mean, that's my favourite draft, that one.
This one, the
And it's
Haaland, the
not got,
no Haaland draft.
and it's not got Haaland in it. It's
Yeah,
whether you're brave
because you
enough.
can.
It's whether you're brave enough. If you're brave enough, fair play. I'm just not. Because
Mm.
I'm just not. Because it's Haaland. He's going to be probably. Well, he's going to win the Golden Boot. Be staggered if he doesn't.
Mm.
And he's going to be in the top 5 FPL scores at the end of the season,
Yeah, so
isn't
I
he?
can't remember
So
if I read out the no Haaland team, which was Sels and Fabianski. All three teams had Sels and Fabianski in goal.
yeah,
This last one, defensive Guardiol, Konsa, Aït-Nouri, Keane, and Harwood-Bellis. Midfield, Rogers, Palmer, Salah, Saka, Foden. Up front, Nick Jackson, Raul Jimenez, and Jamie Vardy. But again,
it's a
those
hell of a midfield. That
some of the budgets could be tweaked as well. But
when
anyway,
you own that midfield that Son's going to score a hat trick, and so's Haaland that
yeah,
week.
probably.
You just know
Um,
that's going to happen.
yeah, quick scan on the price changes so far. Risers, not as many as last week. Risers, but Mbermo, Harwood Bellis, Vardiol, Salah, Palmer, Aït-Nouri have all risen. the most noticeable drops. Raya went down on Sunday. Trent dropped on Tuesday. Yeah, those are the only ones. And as for today, nobody rose. And it was Fernandez of Chelsea and Doherty of Wolves, but no one really standing out from.
Well, I think I own Mbuemo, Vardy, and Eight Nuri, so that's gave me some money. But again, Salah and Palmer are continuing to rise and continuing to be harder and harder to get to. So, do you know what I mean? That's why I said on Tuesday that I could do Havertz to like a 4.5 bench fodder and get them in before that price rise, because the longer you go without them, the harder it is going to be to get them in. That's the thing, because of the money. They will continue to be bought, and they will continue to go up in price.
Which
until somebody, do you know what I mean? So you might be left with no choice but to sell Haaland.
Which moves us on to game week 10. What are your thoughts at the moment? Because spoiler viewers, listeners, Jack did send a message into the Facebook group admin, the podcast admin chat, should I say, with your transfer dilemma that related to funds. What was it?
Well, it was that I had on Tuesday could get Salah and Palmer in for a -4 if I downgraded Havertz to a 4.5. I needed to do it then before I got priced out. I had the exact money. But I didn't do it. I didn't want to take a hit. I think I'm probably going to stagger it a little bit more. I think I'm going to use my 2 free transfers this week. I'm either going to do Havertz to Cunha, and so at the moment I've got 4 players I'm thinking about removing. So I'm either going to downgrade Havertz or Gabriel, and I'm either going to use that money, and I'm either going to do it to Cunha for Havertz or Gabriel to Robinson, or maybe Dallo. I quite like Dallo. But God knows what's going to happen to Man United. And then I'm going to upgrade either Son or Foden, one of them, to Palmer or Salah. So that's my thoughts. Tune in next week to see how that goes. Like I said earlier, most likely going to go for Salah. Prefer his short-term fixtures over the next 3. Then bring Palmer in for 12. That would then probably force me into the Havertz move rather than the Gabriel move. So I'm waiting to see on his fitness, really. See if Gabriel's all right. Most likely the next 4 game weeks are going to be 2 free transfers this week, get Salah in, 2 free transfers in a couple of weeks. So roll next week, get Palmer in, roll the following week, get Saka in, and all the while trying to keep Haaland. So I'm going to have to downgrade Vardy, downgrade Gabriel, downgrade Havertz. Yeah. And I'm probably going to have to keep Chris Wood throughout all of his tough games. Hope he does okay. And just see where I'm left. What about you? What are you thinking?
Well, I've still got there was the carryover from last week, so I've still got Saka and Diaz, and the Robertson question mark about raising, since he has been benched at times this season. That sort of worry of he could be benched at any time, really, in a way. Apart from the big games, to be honest, I think is the point you raised, is that he may be put out on the bench, but against ones where Tsimikas is sufficient. But anyway, so based on last weekend and the feedback from Saka post-match, how he felt he was okay to do the full 90, and he felt great after. Doesn't sit right removing Saka to bring in either Salah or Palmer, because it'll just be, well, in a couple of weeks I'm going to be needed to try to bring Saka back.
Yeah, because then it goes to 4 transfers, doesn't it? You make 2 this week. You take Saka out, use the Saka money. Do you need to downgrade someone to get Saka to Palmer?
So yeah, but I've got two free. I've got
Yeah,
two
yeah, but
free
that's what I'm saying. So you use 2 transfers to sort of get Saka out, and then in a couple of weeks' time, when you want him back, you use another couple of transfers to find money to bring him back.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So then all of a sudden it's 4 transfers to
yeah.
basically remove him for like 2 or 3 weeks.
So I've effectively thought, right, well, he's staying, and Burmo's staying, obviously. Rogers and Semenyo are my cheaper end of the scale,
Mm-hmm.
which leaves Diaz as the most vulnerable in a way to upgrade. And looking around my team as to where I could save pennies, and there's saving 1 million from Raya, so that would be 1 million. Downgrading, say, Robertson to any one of the 4.5s. So, say your suggestion from last week, Lewis. So that would be, well, that's 1.3. Add the one from Raya, 2.3. So just taking out Raya and Robertson, I wouldn't have enough to get Diaz up to Foden, let alone Son or Palmer or Salah. So then I'd be needing to look at the front line, and I've got Delap 5.7. He's got Leicester at home this week, so no.
Yeah, playing. Yeah,
I'm happy to play him. And that fixture, in a way, was one of the reasons why I got him in.
yeah.
Haaland and Watkins, which means really, for if I was only going to use those 2 free transfers this week to get in Salah or Palmer,
Watkins is on the chopping block, isn't he?
it's yeah, and even and I think even Watkins down to the cheaper end. So Watkins down to Raul Jimenez is what, 3.3 million that would give me. So 3.3 million on top of the 7.7 for Diaz. That just gets me to Palmer.
Yeah, it gets you Palmer, yeah.
But nowhere near Salah.
No.
So whereas you're in a funds bracket to be able to get Salah into, I could use my 2 free transfers this week to get to Palmer, so then at least I've got one of the 2. And using that by just downgrading Watkins to one of the budget ones, which means I don't necessarily have to touch my defence this week.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the Gabriel news, doesn't it? I mean, if Gabriel is injured and he's out for a period of time, I won't get Salah because I'll have to downgrade Gabriel. But I might, and then I'll probably just do the Palmer move and I'll swap it round. But doing it that way means I bring Salah in just as he's got Manchester City. So
the spanner in the works, which I looked at budget wise, which is similar to you the other day, yesterday, about you needed to make that move. You had the exact money. Is I could do Haaland and Rogers to Salah and, well, I could do Salah and Chris Wood, but it might have been bang on the nail, Haaland and Rogers for Salah and Jackson.
Ooh. Ooh, I'd be tempted by that. Matty boy. Because part of me's thinking just go the Chelsea double up now. Just do Havertz to Jackson and then like Son to Palmer. Then I do Son to Palmer and I just get the Chelsea boys in now and then just let them play. Because obviously they got United. I mean, that's not necessarily a fixture to not target. It's not necessarily a fixture to target, but it's not a fixture necessarily to be like worried about, especially from like an attacking point of view. So part of me feels like about just going Havertz down to Jackson. It's not a big saving, but it's a saving, I think. And then going Son to Palmer if I've got enough, and just get him in. Yeah, and just hope they could do something between now and game week 12, and you're saving saving a transfer there.
I think basically my sort of where I'm at, and also really is that if I do get priced out or decide against the Haaland and Rodgers to Salah and Jackson, that could be Semenyo and Haaland to Jackson and Salah, because I've got about 0.4 million wiggle room of any price changes, so that could potentially be one that I hold off. So, but I think really where I'm looking at, it's either the Haaland and Rodgers / Semenyo if I want to get Salah in this week, in which case it would probably be Salah and Jackson, but then I'd still have Diaz, or I go a bit more minutes and do the Diaz up to Palmer and Watkins and downgrade Watkins. So yeah, that's where I'm at, and what we'll see.
Yeah, tune in next week to see how that goes. Those dilemmas.
And that midfield dilemmas was significantly longer than I thought it would be.
Well, I think it's hard. I think it's hard to figure out. I think there's a lot to think about with regards to how you spend the Haaland money if you downgrade him, how you're gonna have to cut your defence into bits and have budget defenders rather than premiums in order to get them in. The forwards conversations, the easiest one to have with the amount of options you've got, but the hardest one to decide which ones to go for. So yeah, obviously we've been rabbiting on for ages, but there is quite a lot to discuss this week, and people will be going in different directions.
Yeah.
But if you have enjoyed any of this waffle,
and if you found it helpful in any way, about whether that be how to structure your defence, which premiums midfielders to get in, how many of them, the impact selling Haaland could do to the midfield, or also keeping him. But yeah, please follow us on X at FPL Affairs, Facebook groups Fantasy Premier League FPL 1, YouTube at FPL Affairs, and Spotify link, which will also be in the description because they're always too complicated to read out. But yeah, good luck with your final decisions, Jack. No doubt we'll chat again before in advance of the deadline.
Yeah, you and I both have a mental breakdown between now and then several times about what to do. Hopefully you have better signal this week.
Oh yeah, maybe what I'll do, I'll make sure I change it. Well, I'll make sure well, we're not away on Saturday. Well, actually, we are going away Saturday day trip. But
don't you make early transfers? They're the curse. Don't fall into that trap. But,
you never know, mate. Maybe I have already. Maybe I haven't.
You would have said something by now. Or you get too excited to keep those sorts of things to yourself.
Well, I know I do. If I played it, or maybe my poker face is getting better.
You're a sneakster if you have made an early transfer.
Thanks for
Thanks
joining,
for
for
watching.
listening. Please,
Please like and subscribe, please, please, please.
yeah. And any suggestions for next week, then add them to the comments anywhere you see our post or contacts. But as Jack said, it's time for bed. It's late on Wednesday evening now, and I've got the editing to do. So, final thought is keep your FPL affairs under wraps until the deadline. Good night, all. Bye bye.